First, I want to get rid of this little window. Welcome everybody, and welcome Mr. McCord. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to look at our work. I have one announcement. And some of you may know about this, but Prairie Village there's a Prairie Village art photography exhibit. It's running now till July 7th. And I've got a website if anybody wants to. There is an entry fee. This will be juried, and there will be some cash awards for the top images in this exhibit. It's going to be at the Prairie Village City Hall out there, 7700 Mission Road. So if anybody's interested, I can forward you that information. Sounds like it's going to be an interesting show.
I thought that was already started, or that the deadline was this last weekend.
I thought
No, I thought I saw.
James, it was confusing.
Yeah, it was a little confusing. I'm thinking
So
the
you
deadline.
can still enter it?
I believe so, but the deadline for getting in is coming up soon. Anyway, I'll look at it again. I'll send it out again here and let if it's still open and let everybody know what's going on. That was the only announcement I really had. Raymond, you guys are doing the Blue Springs exhibit here coming up.
yeah, there's several of us over in this side of town that are doing it.
When does that start up again? I saw the flyer.
Friday morning, we have to deliver the stuff, and it opens to the public Saturday morning.
This coming Saturday morning?
Yes, and it runs through Sunday, I think about 4 o'clock, because we have to pick up our work at 4.
So it's
Saturday
just
night.
this weekend.
Yeah, Saturday night they have it's mostly finger food and desserts and wine, lemonade, and so on for the artists who are involved in it. And it's a nice little event. You know, I don't typically enter things that are non-juried entries, but it's been going on for a long time, and I just do it because a lot of other people do it here in town, kind of support them and so on.
Sure. Where's it going to be at?
It's at Vesper Hall. It's just about, I'd say maybe a mile east of 7 Highway and Vesper.
Okay, that's out in Blue Spring.
Yeah, there's a Firestone building right there in the corner. Firestone car service thing.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any announcements or exhibits that they want to mention? No.
Did you want to talk about that meeting now or later?
Yeah, I'm looking right at it. That's
Okay,
that's my next agenda.
All right.
So anyway, I want to get a business meeting set up if I can. I'm looking at a couple of quick possible dates. Both of these are on a Saturday or Sunday between 10 a.m. and 12. We need to end it by 1 o'clock because I think that was a time frame everybody had open. But I'm looking at March 11th or 12th, which is this Saturday or Sunday, or next Saturday or Sunday, which would be March 18th or 19th. Does anybody have a problem with any of those dates?
Well, this weekend is not for me.
Okay.
I might have on this Saturday, Calvin.
Okay, well, we can push it up. We've got next weekend, about the 18th or 19th, and I can send out a email and maybe a couple other alternative weekends if you guys want. So we can all kind of get our heads together. But we do need to meet, go over a few things here pretty quick because this year's getting away from us.
Where are you suggesting we meet?
Well, do a Zoom.
Oh, Zoom.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just do a Zoom. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm good this Sunday or the following Sunday. The 18th, I'm pretty tied up, but I'm good on either this Sunday or the following Sunday.
Okay, so that would be the 19th.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
work for me too, Calvin.
Okay. All right, so maybe we'll try to shoot for that, see if anybody else has any issues with that date. Yeah, because we need to we need to get our science subjects for next year nailed down because we're running out of time. And I just got, just some housekeeping stuff I want to go over with everybody. Let's see. And then, yeah, I was gonna discuss in that meeting too, Raymond, that we continue with what we've been doing for our September meeting. And where we, like we did this
okay.
year, we can pick an assigned subject, because you and I talked about several different
Yeah,
several different things we could do, and which are more of a challenge than just going out here and taking a
Sure.
snapshot of an old fence or something like that.
okay,
We can make it a little more challenge, but we learn something. And then we get I'd like to get the description of that nailed down so that way we get everybody on the same page. There was a little confusion with a high key one this year, but we muddled through it. But anyway, let's see. So anyway, that's one thing I wanted to bring up in the meeting too. We talked about that and go over what we want to set for our September meeting. Other than that, that's all the old stuff that I have on my head. Anybody else have anything else they want to add? Well, if not, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. McCord and let him tear our work apart.
Well, okay, I've got the images pulled up, but I guess now is everybody online that's going to be online, or I mean, how's this working right now with regard to people that submitted the photos and
We got a couple of them not
just
here,
kind of
but
bring me up.
yeah, just do a screen share. If they get on, they get on. If not, they're just going to miss out.
Okay. All right.
So as you bring them up, Craig, you can do a screen share. You bring up whichever category you want first, and when you do a screen share, we all should be able to see what you have in front of you.
Okay. Hang on a second. Now according to your email, the subject was mechanical things, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I've got let's see what I've got here. Hang on as I struggle with a couple of technical issues.
I didn't catch it. You broke up.
Yeah, the audio is cutting in and out.
he's out in an area where
Yeah,
service is
just-
not real good.
Oh, yeah, hang on just a second, I can fix that. A little bit better.
Sounded better.
Okay, bear with me. Okay, I've got about 16 images, okay? Is that
Okay.
is that
That's
is that
all
right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
The only reason I'm
Uh,
questioning that is because it's about mechanical, but there's one image in here that is really a portrait.
They all the assigned should start off with the word assigned and then have a title and then the photographer's name.
Craig, the guy that submitted that's got a picture of a gear that's got 3 gears in a triangle. That's his assigned, and the others is open. The portrait's the open.
Okay, I'm just not, all I see is the files. I don't have the categories. I'm not seeing the categories, so that may be,
Oh,
but we'll just work through it.
Yeah, the file name should have assigned at the beginning of it, and then the
Or
open
open.
should say open.
Okay, all right, let me look at the assign. Okay, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we got 7 that are open, and so we got assigned and open. Correct? We got
There
mechanical
should be-
and open.
There should be 8
Yes.
of each one. Yeah.
Should be eight of each.
Yep, you're right. Okay, so we'll look at mechanical first. So share screen. What do you see? I'm sharing screen. I think I'm sharing screen. Okay. What are you seeing now?
Nothing yet, Craig.
Just seeing your face.
Oh, what's wrong with that? Okay, I've got to,
And you have to pick, when you click share screen, you have to pick which screen you want to share.
yeah. Bottom center of the screen. The Zoom screen.
all right,
There we go.
There you
There
go.
we are.
you see it?
Yep.
We see it.
Yes,
All right, so now, you just want my critique of these images, is that correct?
Well, yeah, like I say, if the photographer's here, I think that was James Schultz. Go ahead if you want to engage him a little bit and see what,
Okay, all right, James. All right, I like the tonal contrast of this image. Okay, I really do. And the way the spokes and all
Mhm.
range out from different angles and all, I think that's good. I like the way essentially the sprockets, essentially the core of the wheel and the gears are all up toward the top, and it emanates from that. And then the gear down at the bottom, the smaller gear, I think it's well composed, and I like the detail and the tonal contrast. It really works for me. Very sharp for a mechanical type of image, in my view. I think it works. Now, the question I've got, and this is not a criticism, it's just a curiosity. In the background, where you've got, can you see my little cursor
Yes.
thing here?
yes.
Yeah,
All right, this in the background here looks like a shadow kind of thing. What is that? Is that actually a shadow?
yeah, it's shadow of the tire.
Okay.
Folks.
So you had upper left lighting, I would assume.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Okay, and so that shadow is coming based on your lighting from the upper left, and it's, I guess, onto what you're
Pretty much the
using
left side,
as
yeah.
a background. And and I think that adds to this image in a way, because it's not just the main portion of it. I think that the shadow is a secondary element, which I like. I think that works pretty well. So James, I like that. So shall we go on to the next?
Sure. And you can
And this is Dennis Lindell. Is he in there? Is he in here?
Not this evening.
I like the arrangement. I mean, the composition is okay with me. I think the highlights are a little harsh here. So I think in some ways I think the tonal contrast is just, or the contrast is just a little bit high. I'd like to see some more detail, like on the top of the front standard of the 4x5, and on the back standard, those highlights, I think are just a little hot. And maybe even some increase of shadows and the lens over here, increase some shadows here. And maybe overall, so I think maybe the contrast is just a little bit high. I'd increase the shadows a little bit, maybe even get some more detail in the bellows here. But compositionally, I can't say I've really got any problem with it. I like your depth of field. You've got, almost makes me think that this was taken with a 4x5 or a view camera because of the way the depth of field is. You've got sharp focus, except for this lower left here. And soft focus in the background, but you've got good detail in the bellows up on top and good detail in most of your lenses. So it'd be interesting to know what he actually took this image with. But overall, I think compositionally, I'm okay with it. I like it okay. I'd just like to see a little more detail in the shadows and a little, this area up here is a little hot. This is a little hot here as well as over here. So that would be my only comments about this image.
That a logo down the bottom right corner.
Yeah, that's in the wrong place.
Yeah, I just kind of discarded the logo.
Yeah,
I
I was
don't-
kind of curious. I saw that. I couldn't figure out what it was.
So do you think this image was cropped from side to side or from top to bottom?
I think it was cropped side to side. It's kind of hard to tell, really. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
square image.
Yeah,
So I think I would like to have, since you brought that question up, I think maybe I'd like to see if I bring this bottom up just slightly and see a little bit more of the view camera up on top.
Mhm.
I think I would probably prefer that. But, it depends on, is there anything there to look at? I mean, in terms of the image was taken, is this the whole image and it just cropped from the size to make it square? I, don't know without talking to him and asking him about it. But I think if there was more room, I'm thinking he must have done it side to side, because if it was a vertical image, then I don't think, or at least speaking for myself, I wouldn't have cropped out the top part of this camera. I'd have found a way to kind of keep that in it to give total story of that view camera. So that might have been his only choice, is to make a square out of it and compose it this way. That's speculation. That's just guess. Thoughts? I'm all about you don't have to agree with what I'm saying.
Well, compositionally, I feel like the loose lens laying on the black, that's really hot. It's looks like it's burned out there, about 255 value in the top of it.
Yeah.
Compositionally, I would have liked to have brought that down. I mean, if you imagine a circle from the left lens around and back to the opening of the view camera. If you create a visual line or a circle there, you know, putting that lens a little further down and putting the lens that's mounted on the lens plate a little squarer toward the image and back up toward the view camera. I think it compositionally been stronger. And I'd eliminate that logo at the bottom right. It's just it's too hot. My eye wants to go there immediately. And I agree, Craig, that arm, if you will, that's on the back of the camera there takes you right out of the image, and it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's even part of it.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
compositionally, I think it's a little weak. It could stand some improvement.
yeah, you can move this, I think, a little over. I'm not too sure that I'm that concerned about the overlap here.
No, I
Um,
agree.
Because that kind of, to me, it kind of like, okay, you know, it doesn't look too staged, you know.
Right.
I agree that this could be probably repositioned a little bit, as you suggested. I don't worry about this. I just totally disregard it because that's, you know, that wasn't part of the composition really. So that's just something he added, you know, logo. I get it. But yeah, it's no, I like the image. Wonder what kind of camera that is.
I don't know. I like
5x7.
It's a 5x7.
Yes.
I shoot 4x5. I can't afford 5x7 film.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's an Intrepid. It's not really not too bad price wise.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I'm not talking about the camera. I'm talking about the film.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I can deal with the cost of a camera. I mean, for crying out loud, but when you're paying for a, you know, every sheet of film that you click the shutter on, you know, that's it gets expensive, but that's okay. Makes you
Better
be
think
more
about it
deliberate.
before you fire it.
That's right. You become more deliberate and discriminate
Uh,
with how you shoot.
I wish people would do that with their digitals.
All right, this is who's this? This is
Roberto Carlos.
Roberto. Roberto in?
He's not here.
Not here. This is purely a to me a very symmetrical. I really don't know what to say about it other than it's kind of like, well, it is what it is. I can't say anything. It's very symmetrical image. The three gears, you got the circle, you got, you know, it's one of those what do they call it, rule of odds. You got the three gears, they're positioned in a triangle relationship, you know, which is good. And you've got the center. You know, I think it's a strong image. I can't say anything bad about it, to be honest. I mean, the exposure is well, the tones are good, the detail, you can even see the detail in the metals, really. Whether it be little imperfections, scratches, and whatever in the gears. So I think the I don't know if these are digital or film or what, but I think process-wise, post-processing wise, I think it did a pretty good job. I don't see any real hot spots that are distracting or unbearable. So, and he did this against a white background. I don't know if he just did a selection in Photoshop and placed it on a white background or how he did it, but you know, I think it's effective.
Yeah, it's on a light table.
Okay, all right,
He and I work together, so I know what he's doing.
okay, yeah, that works. That'll work.
I would have liked to have seen more depth on the back part of those gears. They just kind of get lost
Yeah.
in the background. And I think
The
it would have added more three-dimensional depth to the photograph.
Well, that's a good point. One thing, one thing we struggle with in black and white photography, unlike color photography, is how do you show or how do you convey depth? And in the color photography, often we use not only light, but we use color to convey depth, color contrast, stuff like that. We don't have that in black and white. And so one of the best ways to convey color is that transition between dark and light and dark and light. That helps provide the transition. So to your point, that could very well improve the depth. So you've got now you were saying you wanted to increase the depth. Now, where did you want to?
I think he's
On
talking
the-
about
On
increasing
the
the,
outer part, the gear's on the outer part.
Right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, on
okay.
the outside, they kind of get lost. They're there, but they kind of get lost because of the backlighting.
Yeah, the teeth.
It might have been better if it would have been lit a different way.
Yeah, but I think you could still adjust that. I believe there is something back here, and this may be because of
That's
the
the
light.
gear. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
thick,
the peak.
the gear.
that's the thickness of the gear.
Yeah.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, I think he could have done two shots. One, taking into account the gear tooth area that we're discussing that's burned out, if you will. Not burned out totally, but you can kind of still see it. But do an exposure for that combined with this exposure, and you could have nailed it. I don't see any way, digitally anyway, you could have attained the depth of light to dark that you could by not doing that.
That's a
Yeah,
good idea.
I agree.
Good
I didn't first notice this, and it's probably to your point, to help provide some depth,
Yeah,
either darkening this down, bringing
Well,
this out a little bit more, and even back in here, if there's a way, with these
Well,
back gears
I don't know
back
about
here.
I don't know about your monitor, Craig, but on mine, that shadow detail looks pretty good.
Okay, well, it's probably my monitor.
Uh, But I also, one thing I like about it is that he raised center slightly high in order to get the background of the gears on the right, left, and top, and on the ones on the interior side.
right.
The interior. So rather than taking a straight on shot, he raised it a little bit to be able to get
Right.
that.
It's just raised just slightly a bit, and sometimes
Yeah.
that makes a difference between that, how we get focus when somebody puts the subject right in the center of a frame,
Right.
you get frozen, and he's just placed it just a little bit off center enough to avoid that issue. But overall, I think it's a good image. I mean, it can be tweaked a little bit as you suggested with some of those areas. And Raymond, like you said, it might be my monitor right now is may not be showing some of the things.
Yeah, the shadows are showing good in mine. In that previous one of the camera, though, I agree with you. Those shadow areas were not showing on my monitor.
All right. Any other comments? All right, let's go to the next one. Now, I kind of like old contraptions like this, just like, well, all photographers do, I think, whether it be old machinery or old barns or structures or stuff like that, because they have a certain amount of character to them, and that's good. Now, about this image, it's kind of like a straight on shot, and that's okay, I guess. But it looks a little flat to me, to be honest. I would like to see more, and it looks a little soft too, to be honest. The wheel, I mean, the detail and some of the aspects of this, I don't even know what it is.
Steam tractor.
Steam tractor,
Steam tractor, steamroller.
That's
steamroller.
actually a steamroller there, yeah.
It's a little soft. And I don't know if this is a digital image or a film image.
Digital.
Digital, okay. I think, whose image is this?
Mine, Tom.
Tom? I don't know why it looks a little soft. I don't know. Maybe the focus or the depth of field, maybe. I'm looking at back in your trees here. And I don't know, it's almost like, do you remember what you focused on? What was your focal point? You remember?
I don't remember. I was, it was with a telephoto lens, but I don't know what I
Okay.
shot that with.
All right, well, it may have been just a depth of field issue a little bit, but this looks a little soft. This wheel looks a little soft. Some of these areas just look a little soft. So the depth of field, maybe the aperture that you shot it with was just a little shallow.
Okay.
But aside from that, though, I would like to see a little more contrast in here, tonal contrast. I'd like to see some of these white areas in here, the contrast brought out where you see more of these streaks, and maybe bring up the whites, take down the blacks a little. I'm not talking about drastically. I'm just talking about, and I would do this in Lightroom in a way where I would actually paint. I'd maybe get a brush and bring up the whites. And I'm not talking about exposure. I'm just talking about whites, and just paint some of these white areas to more accentuate them and bring up the clarity a little bit. And bringing up the clarity in the whites like that will bring out more texture and contrast in this area. So I think that would really do, because right now, all your tone, the way I see it is your tones in the tractor are kind of blending in with the tones in the forest.
That's true. Yeah.
So this would be a way to essentially separate the two. And I would also,
Personally, I think, Craig, I think the key for me is next time, this is over the Transportation Museum in St. Louis. Next time I go, I'm going to shoot that with a different lens. I think would really make that come out better.
Yeah,
I think
keep
you're
in mind
probably
that
right.
a telephoto lens foreshortens everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the only
helping
thing I had with me, but
Well, but I think even still, I mean, aside from the idea that maybe because of using the telephoto lens, your depth of field was probably a little shallower than you wanted it to be. Because, you look at this right here, that looks sharp to me, which tells me or suggests to me that maybe you focus somewhere in this area up here, but your depth of field was such that it actually softened this here.
I got you. Yeah.
So the depth of field was just a little bit soft. Now, what I would also potentially go, in Lightroom with their new additions in the last 6 months or so with masking techniques in Lightroom, you can do so much in Lightroom that you couldn't do before. But I would probably look at a way to darken the background slightly to make it almost like fade away. I'm not saying make it black. I'm just saying
Blur it.
darken it to where you can still see, okay, yeah, there's a forest back there and woods or whatever it is. but that separation will give you more attention to your tractor.
Gotcha. Okay,
And I'd probably also burn down this lower edge down here. Because I think the light, to be quite honest with you, I'd bring the exposure of the whole image down slightly, and then bring up the areas that you want to add direction of the light, to show direction of the light and all. But this is all, to me, is a little bit brighter than it needs to be, because, you know, your attention is going to be drawn down to this light area down here.
I think if I'd have shot that at a different time of day, I think that was like high noon, you know.
Yeah,
If I'd have shot that at a different hour, you know, like 4 in the afternoon or 5 o'clock, I might have got a much better picture plus a different lens.
yeah, and that would certainly help, I think. But you can still, I would suggest you go back and try to bring down the exposure of the whole image, okay?
Okay,
And then start from there. I'm not saying bring it down and, okay, that's it. I'm saying bring it down and then start to build back from there. So you bring down the overall exposure, then add back. You want to keep the aspect, you got light here, you got shadow here, you got light here. That's good, but bring it down. And then as you brought down the whole image, then start selectively either brushing or radial, what am I saying? The radial tool, I guess, the exact term escapes me at the moment, in Lightroom, to bring up the character and the elements of the tractor in ways that we discussed earlier, with bringing up the whites, the clarity, taking down some of the blacks to give some of that structure look to this, at the same time separating it from the background. So that'd be something I would try to do with this and play with it a little bit.
okay, thanks, Craig.
Hey, Tom, I got one quick question for you. Can you get right up to this machine?
Yes, yeah, so I could use a wider angle.
Well, I'll tell you what I would go for. If you go back out there, walk around there to the back and see if you can get some shot of those controls.
I'm sorry, please.
See if you can get some shot of those controls where the operator would stand in there. I don't know what if they got, you know, a lot of valves, levers, what they have in there, or
yeah, I think that-
gauges even.
I
don't
think that
know.
was accessible. I think that was accessible. I'm trying to remember now, but because they
Yeah.
had some areas that were cordoned off, you couldn't
Right,
get too close, you know?
right. Because I shot an old steam engine on display up in Atchison one time. I actually was able to get up and look in the cab window. My God, all those levers and gears or valves they had. Oh, it's just, I love that shot. You know, it's.
Well, I'll tell you
There's
the character of that machine, there's 100 different compositions with this thing.
Oh my God,
I mean,
yeah.
you do all kind of intimate detail shots. And yeah, I bet you could spend probably a couple hours taking different perspectives and images of this machine.
I think this too there's no breathing room around it. I mean, it feels too tight to me compositionally.
Well, there was some garbage in the background that there were some other things in the background I was trying to eliminate, but again, if I got in closer, I don't think I'd have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's true.
But you know, to Raymond's thought there, I would agree. If I were taking this, I mean, because this is almost like just a portrait, okay? If I backed up a little bit more with a wide angle lens, maybe even a different angle, and made it an element within a larger composition, whether it be the forest in the back or some other element that's not visible, I'm not aware of. And it might make you, I mean, even if it's just the forest in the background, it would be easier at that point to do some of the things I was talking about with regard to isolating this from the background, using the background as part of the setting, but really being able to make this, okay, yeah, this is where it is, but it's not just a portrait of the machine. It's the machine is just an element in a larger environment, if that makes sense.
I understand. Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's see, go to the next here. This is one of those things I don't want to fool with. But I'll end up cutting my thumb off or something. I'm not very mechanical. Now, okay. My first thought when I looked at this was, well, I don't know, a little shallow depth of field. So we're really focusing in on this saw. Whose is this? This is Gary. Gary, you in? Gary's not here.
He's not here.
Okay. So it makes me think, okay, what's the intent here? Now, as I look at it, I said, well, his use of depth of field is good here because what it does is it does isolate this piece of machinery from the background. It does make it about this saw, this piece, actually about the saw, this part of the saw and the blade. Because even this little thing here, which I'm not sure what the purpose of that is.
That's an air nozzle. Air
Is
nozzle.
it an air nozzle? Okay.
Yeah.
It is, I was gonna say, this looks a little soft here too, but that looks sharp. So I don't know. Of course, this is all soft and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I like the way it comes around though, in this diagonal fashion, which is good. The way it's composed, square composition, that's fine. And the way this loops around like that is good. So,
No pun intended, but the blade ought to be sharp.
yes,
It doesn't look sharp on mine.
it does not look. Well,
No.
this all looks sharp, and this skin's right here. It does not look very sharp. Right in here, it does not from here. But this all is very, to me, it is tack sharp. So it gets back to, again, what was your focal point? Where did you focus on this thing? What was your intent? Because the depth of field is very shallow here. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting to know what his lens and f-stop was. But yeah, I think this all needs to be sharp. It's a little bit soft right in here. I mean, it's sharp here and up here, and this is very sharp, but this starts to get soft. So I think it's a depth of field issue. I think the shallow depth of field overall was a good choice because it does focus in on the main piece here. But I think just a little bit, just a little too shallow. Other than that, I think we're okay. I'm not even bothered by this little bit of bright area up here, to be honest with you. Because that allows this piece to be part of the image, which I think helps define kind of what it is. Other thoughts? I mean, it's got good contrast, total contrast, good blacks, whites. I got no problem with that. Now, it's interesting how some images, a lot of people get locked into this three, 3:2 format or 4:5 format or whatever. And sometimes square works really well.
Well, I think one of the things about this, the problem maybe he didn't realize he had was he's got a down angle from his camera to the subject. And what he didn't realize, I don't think, was that that down angle gives him varying degrees of focus on that blade.
Yeah.
There's no part of the blade on my image anyway that appears to be sharp. He's selected a point that's more in the center of his field of vision, and he didn't take into account the change in depth of the blade and how that falls out of the focal range of what his settings were.
You're right, Raymond, because my guess is, like you said, his
That's
focal
where he-
plane was,
That's where he focused, right there. That's where he focused.
and his focal plane, he was slightly diagonal because he was
Right,
down.
right.
And now with the view camera, you could have done that easily. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
fixed
yeah, but
yeah, with just a regular camera that close with your focal plane slanted forward, yeah, it's going to affect that close depth field like that, especially with what he was trying to do with the shallow depth of field.
yeah.
All right. Now let's see, who's this? Bill, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Now, one thing I like about this, and this is, I think, a mistake that some people make, is trying to shoot something like this kind of straight on. I mean, when I say straight on, notice how your composition, you've got diagonals everywhere. It's all about diagonals here. Everything is, so you got where if you would have shot this straight on, I mean, when I say straight on, where this is all horizontal, it would have been an entirely different image, and I don't think it would have been quite as effective. Now your detail in here is really good. I mean, I like, you can see all the dents and scratches and everything within the parts. I think I would, and again, this is just back to maybe to my style a little bit, is I would like to see a little bit more contrast, tonal contrast. I'm not saying this looks flat, but almost, there's just not enough contrast in it that I would like to see, I think. And that may be just subjective. And also what I would do, I think, this is again, working on the contrast piece. This is, of course, it says, what's it made in China? Of course, everything's made in China. But just the lettering, I would probably look to bring that out and leave it a little bit more. And I would do that with, again, using in Lightroom, maybe using some brushes, just to increase the blacks a little bit, just enough to bring that lettering out a little bit.
Okay.
And I would play with that. I think it's just, the only thing I've got to say again about it is just the the tones are a little flatter, and I want to say it's not a flat image by any means, but I'd just like to see a little bit more contrast in it than there is. Now you got to be careful, of course, because you try to add too much contrast, and you're almost going to have to do it not by using a contrast slider. You're going to have to do it using brushes and fine tuning some of the sliders. Maybe bring this area down here a little bit, where you might bring the blacks down a little bit, but so you're going to increase contrast in some of these areas without necessarily reducing exposure. So there's ways that you can do that in Lightroom with brushes and a few of the other tools that I think could make a difference there.
Okay,
Raymond, what do you think?
Well, my thoughts are that I see something here that's got about 5 or 6 different pictures in it.
Oh, wow.
You know, if I were going to shoot this, and this is just me, but I would approach this from a macro standpoint. I would really get in there, and there's several areas that I see that the interaction between the gears or the gear in the surrounding area really make it more interesting. I mean, to here, there's just, it seems too busy to look at. I mean, comfortably. There's a lot of interactions in about 4 or 5 places that I think could be really interesting if you zoomed in on those spots and captured those. But that's just me, but.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's not unlike a lot of images that we take. You can take something like this, or again, getting back to the antique steamroller or whatever. There's dozens of compositions within the composition.
Yeah.
But I think what you could also do here is this area down here and this area over here outside of this square. You might have to ask yourself, how important is it? And what I might do is maybe take a graduated radial filter or a brush, or however you want to do it. I mean, there's a number of ways you can do it anymore in Lightroom, but I would just bring these values in this little triangle here down. I'd bring those down and maybe do the same thing with this area up here, excluding this piece, but just bring that down as well as some of this area in here. Now, I'm not talking about making it black. I'm just talking about bringing the tonal value down. So what you're really focused on in that point is this whole piece here.
Well, another thought would be you could make a mask with a circle in it, a soft edge circle.
Yes.
You could change the transparency of the surround of the circle, where you might open up, or excuse me, the center of the circle might be in the interaction between those 2 gears in the center right. Move your cursor up to the right, down, 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 stop there. Say you put your circle there and look at that interaction that's going on there between those 2 gears. Have that circle, the exposure that it is, perhaps with a little bit more contrast, and then the circle, every area around it is a darker shade, which retains the values, but it literally tones everything down and forces the eye to look at this part of the image.
Yes.
Did I explain it well enough?
Yes, I think you did. And one thing I'd encourage everybody to really explore, and I don't know how people have processed their images or what tools they use, but whenever I started reverting back to black and white, I used to do, when I was doing color, I think I used Lightroom. I do, a few adjustments and maybe a few global adjustments, not many. And I essentially do about 10% of my post-processing in Lightroom. And then the rest of it was Photoshop. But now that I'm doing black and white, it's almost the opposite. I'll do I'll do at least 85% of, well, I'll say 80%. 80% of my processing, especially now with the new Lightroom tools and masking capabilities. Lightroom has become an amazing product to use, particularly when you're talking about black and white. So with their masking tools and ability to make selections and all, you can really do some of the things that Raymond was talking about with very little effort. So I would encourage people to really, if you haven't or don't, explore with some of those things and use those tools to really emphasize where you want your eye to go and what you really want to convey in your image.
Yeah, the other thing you can do is if you're truly in a 3-value RGB black and white file, you can go into each of the channels and play with those a little bit and get changes in contrast and darkness by doing that.
Yes, you
Sometimes
can.
more effectively than masking.
Well, that's kind of a global thing, but yeah, thing is, there's a dozen different ways or more that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. If you know how to use the tools, as Raymond said, you can use channels, you can use brushes, masking, a number of different things. So it really increases your ability to produce a really, in some cases, a really fine art image if you have a good understanding of the tools you're working with. What would Ansel do today? My guess is Ansel would know Lightroom and Photoshop inside out.
Yeah.
All right. This is Bill. All right, Bill.
Yeah,
Is this
that's a turbocharger fan. Came out of a turbocharger. Shot on a piece of black plexiglass. Softbox sitting on top of it. That's why it's white. Yet it still has the mirrored image on the bottom of it. So
I was curious about now. So it's sitting on, you say,
black plexiglass.
okay.
There's a softbox sitting on top of it, which is why the black plexiglass looks white, except for where it didn't get the light, which is down below on the mirrored image portion of it there at the bottom. And there's a few reflectors on the sides and that kind of thing, but white reflectors.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna. I don't use artificial light, so I'm not gonna make too many comments on that. But what I will say about it is, it looks like we've got a little bit of, you want to call it maybe flare here, little over.
The nut is a bronze colored nut.
Okay.
The rest of it's just a gray tone, like a satin gray.
Now, this up here,
That's catching the light off the softbox.
okay, and what is this darker area that we're seeing here?
It's rust. Rust
Okay.
has been cleaned off there, so that's the same thing with the face of that. Had rust on it at one time and has been cleaned.
Well, this is what I would say about this, what I would like to see is this softness. I say it was flare. It's not really flare, or maybe it is. You want to call it flare. It's almost like you reduce the contrast here because you got some bleed over from some light. So it reduces the contrast in here. And this up here, I would like to see these values brought down so I can see what this is. So these rust spots, because this is all about really, this is really in a lot of ways about texture of the machinery and these blades and all. I mean, it's patterns, not only texture, but obviously there's the patterns and the shapes of the blades. But you can see, bring this down a little bit. I'd like to see this emphasized more. I mean, these little patterns here, as well as what this was all about. So this is too hot for me. I'd want to bring that down. And also, I think you could maybe even bring this up a little bit, bring the shadows up and the clarity up a little bit to emphasize the texture here and these numbers or whatever this is writing is here. And as far as this goes, little dark. Could we bring up? I'm thinking, well, why couldn't we bring up the shadows here a little bit? Not a lot, because you don't want it to compete with this, but just enough to give a little bit of detail here to show that in fact it is just a mirror image of the main item.
Yeah, if I had to do it over again, Craig, I would either use a little mirror to throw some light in that casting number area, or I've got a snoot I could have hooked up, but I didn't. I mean, my MO seems to be doing this stuff at the last minute, so I ran out of time exactly. But that's what I would do. I would hit that B09 with some kind of a light, so it looked a little better, which might have pulled up some detail in the reflection below it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I like your angle. I like your angle, Bill. I mean, I think it's a good angle to catch this.
Thank you.
But yeah, I would just want to see more of these features brought out. And like I said up here, bring those values down a little bit in the shadows and the texture here. But that's my thoughts. Now, other than that, is there anything else down here? Could this been brought up a little bit further? Not quite, because right now it's almost centered. So if you brought this up a little bit, would it give more of this, or would that be a value, or would it be too competing? What do you think? And this is a
Yeah,
question.
it could have came up another inch maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some minor things that we all kind of struggle with sometimes. You say, well, about another inch or so, but sometimes it makes a difference. Sometimes it just makes that final difference. Any other thoughts? All right, we'll move on then here. Are all these images square?
Almost.
Looks like.
Well, again, this is another image. I think it's a little bit too hot overall. Again, I think I would bring the highlight values down a little bit to emphasize maybe some more of this texture and the writing and what have you. Very symmetrical image, but I think just overall, it's a little hot. Which I think, to me, it takes away from the character and the textures of this piece of machinery. What is it anyway?
It's an old alarm clock.
Alarm clock?
Yes,
Does it keep time?
not anymore.
It's pretty
No.
much wound.
Yeah, it's another one of those, micro shots macro shots that, but I think it's just the highlights are just a little hot. So it's almost one of those say, okay, the contrast is too high in it. But I'd like to see the texture. And again, what is this? This is writing.
Yes,
So I would want to, in something like this, when there is writing, stamped writing or whatever, that probably conveyed, okay, the company that made this or something that was important to this piece based on the maker. I'd want to see what that is, because that helps tell the story. So how can we do that? Can we bring, even if, I'm not saying the whole thing, maybe this outer piece here is fine, maybe, but this inner piece, this intersections here is a little bit hot. So if you brought that down a little and increase your, lowered your blacks a little bit, increase your whites, not necessarily, I mean, you're gonna have to play with it. Whites, highlights, blacks, contrast. You can play with those sliders to see what brings it out the most. But what I would like to see again is these gears are pretty well blown out. This is really kind of blown out. So I'd want to, even if you did the luminosity last mask or not, you can make a luminosity mask now in Lightroom where you get these values and select these values and just, of course, you can select a lot of other too, but you can subtract some stuff and essentially make a mask and bring these down a little bit and then work on this plate here to increase the texture and possibly bring out some of the writing of that plate. That's my thought.
Calvin, did you posterize that?
no. Those,
At least
White.
intentionally?
no. Those bright colored gears are white plastic.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they were,
Okay.
they've actually been brought down quite a bit.
All right.
About as
So
far as
that's
about as far as I go without start.
overall texture of it looks like it was either posterized as a result of posterizing or over sharpened.
Yeah, you don't want to, Calvin, to your point about the white gears. Yeah, you don't want to bring this, if they're white gears, white plastic or white, whatever they are, you don't want to bring those values down to the point to where they're muddy.
Right.
That's for sure. But I think you can do something with this plate here,
Sure.
mechanisms here to bring those down and give you some more definition in the texture and detail there.
Alvin, did you use a preset on that?
Preset as far as
The look and exposure of it?
this is one of about 80 different variations of this shot. I'm not
Oh.
kidding. I got a macro lens and this is natural light. This is not artificial light. This is light coming in through a window. And it's sitting on a black board. So it would kind of highlight the mechanism. But yeah, I played with this thing till I was sick of looking at it.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just, and maybe part of it is maybe the clarity is a little bit too high.
Yeah,
That
that could
can
be.
happen. So that's another thing you
I mean,
take
the
a look
overall,
at.
the overall texture and grain, it looks like a real grainy film, you know, but I don't think he shot this on film.
No,
But,
it's digital.
That really coarse grainy look, to me, doesn't seem like that's the way the alarm clock probably really was.
You're talking about around that inside ring there?
Everything, the inside
Well,
ring,
that inside ring has got that grain.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised there, but the back of the
Yeah.
the clock itself, I can't imagine being that coarse a grain.
Yeah, it is.
Is
It's,
it? Okay,
yeah, it's pretty crude. That's what I say. I played with this thing 6 ways a Sunday. And this is finally what I gave up on. I just said, okay, this is it. Go for broke.
Did you use any noise reduction, Calvin?
Slightly. I did a little bit, not much. And that was only to the point where it started making the individual teeth on those gears just a little bit sharp. And that's it. No, I didn't go nuts with the noise. I didn't use any noise. I just went slightly on the what's the word I'm looking for? The sharpness. I just sharpened it just a tiny bit. But this is all done with a macro lens, so this is a manual lens too. Manual lens on an automatic camera.
you weren't hand holding it, were you?
No. No. But I would
All right.
actually, when I start shooting this, I would look through it and take a shot, and I would focus slightly different one way or another. I just kept going with it. So
Like the tone of it, Calvin.
yeah, the tone of it looks fine, but yeah, like I say, there's parts of it I think it could have been probably a little bit better.
All right, go on. All right, this is Bill.
This
What
is,
is it?
there's a Buddhist monastery in Bloomington, Indiana. And I don't know exactly what this is, whether it's a monument of some kind, and they sometimes have relics of some holy priest or whatever in it. But anyway, I just thought it had an interesting shape.
Okay, it does have an interesting shape. You got nice tonal contrast here. Like the angle that you use, kind of got that vanishing point angle that I think is good. What I wouldn't do now, what camera did you shoot this with? I'm not talking just a regular DSLR.
No, I'm afraid it was a cell phone.
Oh, it was a cell phone?
Yeah.
That's not bad for a cell phone.
Speaking of cell phone.
Yeah.
Oh, I fiddled around with it a little bit. I
Hang on.
darkened the edges.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think you darken the edges too much, at least on the right side,
Okay.
because you've essentially blocked all your detail out of your, you know, kind of blocked up your shadows there a little bit. But the reason I asked about the phone or the camera is not so much that I wanted to make any comment about you shooting Nikon or Sony or Canon or whatever. It's not, but it was the aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Now, this aspect ratio, it looks pretty much kind of like a 3:2 aspect ratio, which most are. But what I found, and this is my 4x5 bias, okay? And I find this to be true most often with vertical compositions. And I would suggest that you all try this from time to time. Sometimes you take a vertical image and say, you know, I like it, but there's just something not right about it. I mean, I can't crop it in. It's something not working. Something's just not feeling right. What I suggest is you go to a 4x5 crop and then take another look at it. So in this, I would say, if you went to a 4x5 crop, you would end up cropping about this much of the top off. And it might make all the difference in the world in terms of how you feel about the composition. Now, there's nothing wrong with this composition, but because I've done this. I've done this. As a matter of fact, most all my vertical shots now, unless I do a square, but almost all my vertical shots now, I'm doing more, not only because I'm shooting 4x5, but even my older shots, whether it be a 60 or 67 is almost 4x5 anyway, but even my old 3:2 aspect ratio shots, a lot of times I'll go back on a vertical shot and crop it 4x5 and see what it looks like. And more times than not, I like the 4x5 better. Now that might be just me because of my 4x5 bias, but I think if you cut, because how much of the sky is really needed here in this composition?
Well, I guess you don't really need much of it.
You don't need much of it. So if you made this a 4x5 shot, you'd probably be cutting it off right about here, right in
Okay.
this area here, about this part of the image would be gone, which really makes it even more about your main subject. So I would recommend you go back and take a look at that.
Okay.
And also what I would do is I would bring down the values in the sky. You can do that a number of ways, but I bring down the value in the sky and the clouds because I'd want to bring out more of the texture in, because you know you got a lot of light, you got light here, you got darker areas of the clouds. You can make it more dramatic if you bring some of these values down a little bit and then use brush and whites and all, or dark, or to bring up certain areas to make the clouds, the sky, a little bit more dramatic than it is. So you're essentially painting. You're painting with light, what you're doing. So if you brought the value down, and one way you might do that is, of course, you could do it with radials. You could do it with, depending on, you might even be able to do it with the sky selection in Lightroom. If it does a good job of selecting the sky, just bring the whole value of the sky down and then paint back in with a brush areas of light and dark that you want to emphasize, so it adds more drama to the sky area.
Okay.
So I would play with that. And then what I would do is and again, this gets back to how do you show depth? How do you convey depth, I should say, in black and whites? I would darken this area down here, and you have to do it in a way that doesn't look like you just took an inch or so and just made it dark. No, you'd want to use a feathered brush or whatever and just darken it down where you don't, because this is light enough to where my eye is going down here. So you want to reduce that tendency to want to do that, because you want your eye to go here. And then you want to see your drama in the sky. And this is just a little bit too dark I think it's blocked up shadows in here. Again, this is my monitor. It might look good. Raymond, you said you could.
No,
You're-
it's blocked up on mine too.
Yeah.
Both,
So
both sides. The right side's worse than the left, but
Yeah, the
Bill,
right side is certainly worse than the left.
Bill,
No doubt
did you
about
use a vignette or did you actually paint the vignette? If you
No,
will?
I did the vignette.
You what?
I did the vignette. I didn't paint it in.
Use the vignette?
Sometimes you're better off using a brush or something to just kind of burn it down a little bit, just with a good feather on it. So you're not being too obvious, and then just use a very small flow and density. So you can just kind of paint it in there till it just looks the way you think you want it to be. That way you've got more control over it. The texture, again, the texture of this building, what I would do with this is I'd bring the texture of the stone here out more. So it'd be, again, this light, dark light kind of stuff. But if you made a mask of this area in here, which is easy to do now in Lightroom, these areas right in there, you can do it with a couple different ways. But if you brought down the blacks and white exposure just a little bit, and the blacks and maybe some clarity, added some clarity to it, you'd really bring out the texture of this in here.
Okay.
And I think that would really be a good addition to the overall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's see. Any other comments? All right, moving on. Okay, Bill,
Yes, sir.
what kind of coffee is that?
What kind of coffee?
Is that Starbucks?
No, it's just a cheap brand.
No, I like your composition here. I really do. I really do like this composition.
Thank you.
The
I would do a couple of things myself. I had a choice between two bags for the coffee beans. I think I would go with the larger bag the next time. There's a little bit of room to the left and right. The left kind of bothers me more than the right. I'm not real happy with the upper left, but I'm not sure what else to do with it. Same thing with the bottom. I might crop off another 3/4 of an inch. But other than that, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. A little bit cramped right here. Okay. What I would probably do is you might could bring the bottom up just a little bit, but bring the side out just a little bit. Now I know there may not be a side to bring out a little bit.
Craig, what I got into was the distortion between the bag and the coffee maker machine there. They were both tilting more outward because of the angle and the wide angle
Gotcha.
lens, which I didn't shoot with a particularly wide angle lens. But anyway, it was a case of trying to straighten those up a little bit, and then I lost my crop on the bottom.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, well, we're a little tight right here, but that's, I don't mind. As a matter of fact, I kind of like what you've done here with you're cutting off the coffee, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't figure out the name of it.
But in the bag too, but you've got the three elements, 1, 2, 3, this dynamic going on here. And this down here is an addition, and that's okay. And I like these little beans down here. What is this a plate? What is this sitting on?
Yeah,
here?
I don't have a coffee saucer for that size coffee cup, so that's a
No.
small plate.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's because these lines, that's why I asked if it's a plate or not. It's part of the plate design or what. But they lead you right up to the coffee bag, really. And your angle of your biscottis here are good. I like that. But also, it appears that the weaves in your tablecloth or whatever this is.
Yeah, it's just a piece of burlap.
Okay, piece of burlap, but the weaving is on a diagonal. And I think that helps. Regardless of what direction you're looking at the weaving up here, you see the diagonals. They're diagonals. They're
Right.
diagonals here. They're diagonals there. So I think whether it was intentional or just happenstance, that helps the composition. One of those minor things that help the composition.
Right.
But I like the fact that this is cut here. I don't think there's a problem with that at all. Same way with here. So I think compositionally, I think to me, it's a strong image. I think a little crowded here, but on this edge, but overall, I think it's good.
Thank you.
Other thoughts?
I think I'd have put a third biscotti in there.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
ate that.
He had one, but he ate it before it got
Yeah.
finished.
That actually is true, guys.
I could see
So
the
that's
crumbs.
true. I mean, everything's about thirds, right?
Yeah,
An extra biscotti there would have been good. All right. A lot of fruit here, I guess. Fruits, let's see, who's this one? Gary? Gary's
Yeah,
not here.
he's not here tonight.
All right. Well, what I like about this is it's patterns and shapes. And it's patterns and shapes. I think the way let me look at this a second. Well, it's interesting. In a lot of ways, I was going to say, we've almost got a lot of thirds going on here. We got 1, 2, 3. We've got 1, 2, 3. Got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Not always, but 1, 2. So there's a lot of third stuff going on here. And Gary did not place this section straight in the middle, which is good. So I think I would have done something with that. I might have gotten rid of that sticker there. But
I was thinking that same thing, Craig, that I didn't realize there was a sticker there until now.
Yep.
But it draws your eye right into it, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. So yeah, I've done content aware, remove or something there. But composition, I like it. Again, I think there's some ways that you could bring out some more texture detail in some of these areas. This looks like it's probably pineapple, maybe. I'm not sure, or something of that type. But you could there's ways to bring out more detail in here, same way within here. So just some of this stuff is compositionally, I think it's strong. We can get rid of that. We could bring out some more texture detail in the whole image. But overall, I think and this is one, personally, I like a lot of my images are sometimes a little bit on the dark side. But this is one I'd be careful about burning down edges too much. Just enough that you don't notice it, where it keeps you in. But it's all about this whole series here that I think is important. And it looks like he did maybe burn this down just slightly on the two edges, but it's got to be very subtle to make this work, I think. And I think
That
it's
area is already dark.
huh?
That area is already dark
Yeah,
simply because of the choice of fruits in there.
yeah, right. Yeah, you're exactly right. This area down here, yeah, it's already a little dark. But yeah, I like this image. Not much I can say about it other than ways to maybe increase some of the textures in some of these areas and some of these fruits in here. And maybe some of these in here. I mean, anytime I can find texture like this where there's, when you look at it from, consider it from a black and white standpoint, what is important in black and white is tonal contrast. So if I can, for example, in here, can accentuate this some way to accentuate the tonal contrast between these little patterns in the fruit itself or whatever it is, then that would be good. The same way up here. Tonal contrast between the little divots or whatever in the pineapple or the watermelons and the seeds. That's what I would want to do or try to do to the extent I can to bring that texture out. Even to the extent of some of the impurities in these melons here. When we bring some of that out, some of these lines up here, see these fine lines up here? It'd be relatively easy to do, but I think that's what I would do, I think, in working this image. I would try to work on some of that. Comments?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of missed opportunities of really making this from say a C to a A-. Things that you were talking about primarily.
Yeah. All right. Roberto's not here.
He's not here this evening.
I think it's a beautiful image. Beautiful portrait image. Great use of depth of field. You don't have that darker background clutter. So it's all about the model. And you can see actually a very good command of depth of field. You got this area down here is blurred. This area right behind her is blurred. All the background's blurred, but you got good strong detail in the leaves, in her face, her hat, her whole body is all sharp detail. And not long. Not long. So I think the values of her dress are a little bit high, a little hot. I think I would maybe bring
I would agree with you, Craig. Her outfit's just a little bit hot.
yeah, I'd bring the value of the whole image down just a little bit. And it wouldn't take much, I don't think, at all. And if you had to do a mask of her dress here, or her, whatever this garment is, sweater or whatever it is, and because you can see detail down here, which I suspect there's also detail in here. So if you can make a mask of that and bring those values down so you get the detail of her garment, I think would really add to that.
Do the leaves get a little too busy?
Yes.
You could bring down the values down here and maybe even up there a little bit. So that they don't compete with the model. I mean, that's certainly something you should consider.
Cause
But I
there's a
would-
couple of leaves there that are really pretty hot and I get pulled off of her face.
We talking about up here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, the one that's all the way off onto the left side.
Yeah. Well, the ones at the bottom don't help any either.
Yeah.
yeah, you could move this down. Yeah, you play with the leaves a little bit, so they're not quite so competing. Again, it's how do you want to separate your background, her from the background?
Mm-hmm.
He's done it here very well with his depth of field. His depth of field, he did a great job with exercising the correct depth of field. Now, this other stuff, you could do it a number of ways, but you can bring the values of these down a little bit to give you a little bit more separation between her and the background. But at the same time, they're there and they're sharp and they are part of the composition. So, yeah, just add a little bit of separation there, I think would work. I think it's a great image. Model did a good job. Any other comments? Move along here. Calvin.
Yes.
All right. Good use of depth of field. What I would do is I'd darken this. I'd get a radial filter, and I'd darken all this background. Make this the bird, the subject here, really more prominent, and try to increase some shadows detail in here. Tail looks a little soft. The eye is sharp. That's important. I think with a little bit of extra depth of field, you might have been able to get the whole bird in focus. But the main thing is the eye. That's the most important thing with the animal. And I bring out the details or the shadows here a little bit and down in here. So the contrast is a little bit high here, but I do a radial, bring all this down, values down quite a bit, because total values are competing or they're almost the same. So I'd increase the contrast of the bird itself, make some definition difference in here. This is a little hot here. So there's a couple things I'd want to do with this. I don't care so much about this. So that'd be part of this area that I just darkened down. Comments?
Yeah, those three hot spots in the lower left are pretty hot. And they're a
You got
distraction.
this here, you got this area in here.
Oh, the other one over on the right
Yeah,
there. And that third one where the leaves are coming out of the brick or between the brick. Just below his beak. Below
Below
the beak. Oh, to the right a little bit, the larger, yeah, right there.
yeah.
Those three hot spots. need to be
Yeah.
chopped down.
I might even get rid of this altogether. I'm gonna even eliminate that. But yeah, those are hot spots. All this stuff really is the more you can downplay this, if you will, because it adds nothing, of course, to the image. It's really all about bird, and I'm just darkening this whole thing down. Not so dark, not completely black, but just darken it.
Right. I understand.
All right, let's go. I'm rushing here a little bit because my wife's got to put the pack away. Little dogs. Okay, this is an interesting image. I like it. It does tell kind of a story. Who is this? This is
Tom Motivation.
Yeah, we were in Dawson City in Alaska. And of course, their streets are what you see there, dirt. And their sidewalks are what you see there. And my wife was walking in front of me and just so happened to catch that. I just, kind of documenting the ruggedness of Alaska. So.
I think this is one of those good storytelling images. The only thing I would say about it is, you know what, this is one I would cut off right about here. There's too much here. I'd cut off one right about here. You're still maintaining the fact, okay, we got this tire tracks here and the dirt road or whatever.
Okay.
But I like this. I like the position just where she just happens to be walking, and this it does tell a story. It says, well, okay, can't walk there, or somebody did, and that wasn't so good. And I bring the values down. I'd increase the contrast again, like I've said in a lot of other aspects, is how do I increase the texture of this boardwalk that helps also tell the story about, hey, this is old wood, kind of broken down kind of stuff. And the shadows and everything here all play into it. Even the tonal contrast of her trousers and the tennis shoes, it all works. I think it's a strong image.
Thank you.
This is Dennis. Dennis is not here. This, to me, it looks like it's a contact print. Looks like you made a contact print. Does
Greg,
anybody know?
That could be. I'm
Huh?
not sure, but it could be.
The reason I say that is you look up here, this looks like a contact print because of this area right up here, and you see the negative side here. The issue I have with this image is I don't know what the subject is. And the contrast is, I mean, all your highlights are all blown out. So it makes what could have been a really nice image. So if this is a contact print, my guess is the development was in such a way that it produced, not knowing the film or the developer or the length of time or anything else. It looks like it may have been overdeveloped or whatever, increase the contrast, so all your highlights are blown out. And so it takes away from what might have been a very compelling image.
Greg, I know Dennis was getting back into view camera photography for larger format. And I think this is one of his, and he's just done this recently. I think this is one of his early sheets of film he processed. So he was probably working on his times, development skills, and that sort of thing. So as you said, it was probably more of an experimentation than an actual image he was comfortable with.
Yeah, I got you. It's when you're getting back into it, I've run into it. I run into it when I got back into shooting 4x5 and film. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts.
I think his developer was HC 110. I don't know what film he's using though.
Well, I mean, HC 110 is a good developer, but it's all gets down to how did you expose it? How long did you develop it?
Right.
You know, so what kind of film was it? Was it Tri-X or, you know,
I'm leaning towards saying maybe it was Ilford's 400. And I can't remember the,
five, HP 5 plus? or
yeah, I think, yeah,
Delta
might be something like that.
Yeah, I know I shoot the HP 5 plus and the Delta 100. The Delta 100 is higher contrast, but even still, you have to be careful. I say careful, you have, and it's really all about experimentation with the developer and the length of time and, you know, what did you rate? The film is rated at, say, 400, but what'd you shoot it at? You know, I shoot my 400 at 320, really. So that's going to increase contrast unless you compensate through development. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts. But anyway, I think that's what happened here. Something in the development process created too much contrast, which makes it very hard to print. So that's what happened here.
Right. That's the creek area that's just south of Corporate Woods, just to the west side of the park.
Okay. All right, James,
Yes, sir.
where is this?
This is the Prairie Grass Museum in Topeka.
Okay,
It's got a nice big set of windows in the front end of this thing, and
Yeah.
I was just intrigued the way, it divided up the space and then how the spaces were filled with the knickknack stuff, out on the street.
gotcha. Well, compositionally, I like it fine. The only thing is I would, it's not unlike shooting from indoors out a window, which is what you're doing here, really, right? And
Yeah.
the problem you have is the dynamic range. So if I was doing, because I guess what I'm saying is the outer portions look a little overexposed. Okay.
The middle, there, the center section is clear glass, and the sections to the right and to the left are tinted glass. So it was,
Well, okay, to that point, look at this area here, which is tinted glass, right?
yes,
Okay, so that's like putting a neutral density filter on your camera lens.
Right.
Okay, this is clear glass, so you can see actually the difference. So if this was more like this, it'd be better, but you're always going to have this difference because that's tinted. So I would say if you brought the whole value down, of course, it's also going to bring all this down. So like if I was going to say, if I was shooting film in this composition, this situation, I would probably overexpose, underdevelop.
I think that when I was playing with it, that when I knocked down that centerpiece to that same value, I wasn't pleased with the contrast. And then I was well, that, and then the hot spot in the center. I kept trying to work that down, but at the same time, then the more I worked that down, it didn't balance with the top part. And so anyway, I just kind of did a compromise and then threw it in here to see what kind of a, you know, evaluation that you could give to it.
Yeah, I think I would, you could bring some of these values up. This is pretty dark down in here. I think even Lightroom, you could take some brushes and bring the shadows up, or, you know, so you got a little bit more detail here. And then I wouldn't necessarily try to match this with this. Go ahead and let them be different, but just bring them both down. You take a radial filter, not a radial filter, but a linear filter for this area in here, for example, or you could even maybe even do it with a brush, it wouldn't matter, and just bring the values, overall back values down, and then brush these up. So you could adjust your tonal values in some of this stuff to help balance out what you're concerned about.
Yeah, I've got quite a few shots from within there, you know, to where I divided up all those spaces.
Yeah.
And got, oh, I don't know, a dozen different shots that compositionally, you know, I liked. But it was not easy trying to control the contrast.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's all easy, we wouldn't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think, was that the last one? I think it was the last one. I think it's the last one, guys.
Okay, so back, going into your, into our sign, which one would you put first, second, third, and an honorable mention on?
Boy.
This is all your call.
Yeah, no. All in the same category?
No,
Or separate-
separate category, separate.
Oh,
categories.
separate categories. Okay.
Yeah.
You got one missing there, I think, up at the upper right.
Oh, wait, yeah, there's one back behind it. Yeah, I didn't see that. What is that one? There's a couple of them back there. I can't see them.
You say I'm missing one?
One of them is, yeah, one of them is the coffee shop I took, and I think that's
Yeah.
it.
It's there.
Yeah, I see it.
Maybe there's two back there. I don't know.
Oh, there's, I'm looking at 16 pictures,
Yeah, me too.
so they gotta all be there.
I'm missing my coffee shop. It's just not there.
It's
Oh, it's
there.
there.
It's behind everybody's picture, I think, over here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Let's open a sign.
I don't know if you can move it or not, but
No, you'd have to move it. You can move that little bar or tip if
Have
you
to
want.
move. Have to
I
move
can't-
the whole-
It won't
whole
move.
thing.
Okay.
I can't move it. But I'm gonna go with oh boy, first, second, third in each category.
First, second, third, and an honorable mention in each category.
And honorable mention. Well, that pretty well takes care of them all.
Yeah, it's gonna take out a
Wow.
bunch of them.
I'm gonna go with in the assigned. I'm gonna go with gears.
Number one,
Yeah.
Okay.
Go with gears number one. And Boy, I tell you, this is hard. Volunteered me to do this. I'll go with gears one. The camera mechanical, what it's called, I don't know what the mechanical things. Dennis, well, it's not titled, so it's the one with the view camera.
Yeah, it's called mechanical things.
Okay. And I'll go with I'm gonna go with the gears. The next one. Roberto. Honorable mention. Turbofan. The open categories, I'm going to go with the coffee break is number 1. Needs work is number 2. And the fruit for number 3. Honorable mention will be the model. Did that cover them all?
That covers them.
I think so, yes. Thank you.
I hope I didn't piss anybody off.
Nah,
Nah,
that's what we're here for. We're here to learn.
It's just an opinion. I mean, everybody's got an opinion. That's, and I tell you what, I mean, some of this stuff is just, it's kind of hard because what's the difference between that one and this one? They're both great,
Mhm.
So sometimes they just toss of a coin. But they're all doing some good work.
thank you, Craig. It's been a pleasure to have you judge us, and particularly when somebody talks our language.
Yeah.
We don't always get judges that can do that.
Well, I enjoyed it. Sorry, I was a little bit late, but I enjoy seeing other people's work, and Raymond and I talk quite a bit together from time to time, and he beats me up on some of my images. And
Well, we sure appreciate having him.
Yeah. Yeah.
he's a good mentor to have around, there's no doubt. All right, guys, I gotta go. I've enjoyed it, and hope to see you around again sometime.
Thank you. We'll
All right.
do it.
Thanks a lot, Craig.
Take care,
Thank
Craig.
you.
Later.
Night.
Okay, with that, our next meeting will be April 12th. And that is, our assigned subject is abstract and or abstract in nature. Aaron Smith is designated to be our judge for that meeting. I think you guys all remember him from last year when he judged abstract for us. He was really good. So with that, that's all I have on my agenda.
Hey, you're gonna send out that Prairie Village Show information,
Yes, yes,
dates, and times for that Zoom meeting.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we're looking at Sunday, the 19th is what we've got, and I'll throw it
That's
out
what
there.
that's what we picked, the 19th.
Well, that
Yeah.
was kind of the consensus this evening, so I'll send out and make sure everybody's good with
Okay,
that.
just send something out, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll go somewhere between 10 and noon to start up, and then we want to end up by 1 o'clock, because I remember somebody saying that after 1 o'clock, their day got pretty busy, so.
so I can put that in ink on my calendar.
Well, yeah, however you want to do it, I'll send out a deal, so that's what we got. Hopefully, somebody else There's
So if I don't get it on my calendar, somebody else will get it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I say. I have it written down in on my calendar tentatively. So anyway, folks,
All right,
No.
gang.
Thank you,
enjoyed it.
guys.
Thanks.
See you next
Thanks.
time.
All right,
Alrighty.
sounds good.
have a good
Good night.
night.